The Sahara Desert covers 9 million square kilometers. But 6,000 years ago, it was green. Today, it is the largest hot desert on Earth. Nothing survives here without extreme adaptation. But beneath the sand, scientists keep finding evidence of something impossible. A civilization that shouldn't exist. Lakes, rivers, grasslands, cattle herders, entire communities buried under what's now the driest place on Earth. And when scientists tested the DNA from these burials, they discovered a population that was genetically erased, not conquered, not enslaved, swallowed by a climate catastrophe that turned their homeland into sand. The desert didn't just kill the people. It erased the evidence that they ever existed. NASA satellite data, combined with geological surveys, has mapped the ghost landscape beneath the sand, rivers wider than the Thames, lakes deeper than Lake Geneva. The evidence is literally underfoot. Ancient lake sediments sitting beneath a few meters of sand, rivers, lakes, forests, all buried under sand. The Sahara is a graveyard of ecosystems. Ancient river channels are visible from space, carved deep enough into bedrock to survive 5,000 years of erosion. Freshwater shells, crocodile bones, hippo teeth, all found in the middle of the driest place on Earth. Crocodiles don't live in deserts. Their bones here reveal everything about what this place once was. Pollen records confirm it. The Green Sahara supported savanna, grassland, woodland, and even Mediterranean scrub in its northern reaches. An ecosystem that supported millions of animals and millions of people, all gone in 1,000 years. Today, only a few scattered oases remain, tiny remnants of a water system that once covered millions of square kilometers. The African humid period, roughly 11,000 to 5,000 years ago, a climate window when the Sahara received enough rainfall to support lakes, rivers, and grassland. The Green Sahara, a landscape that would be unrecognizable today. Over 200 ancient lake beds have been identified beneath the sand, some as large as modern Lake Chad. Core samples from Lake Mega Chad show the lake was once 400,000 square kilometers, bigger than the Caspian Sea. Modern Lake Chad is 1/20th the size it was during the Green Sahara. The rest is sand. A lake the size of a European country, now reduced to a puddle. That's what the climate did. The ancient shoreline is still visible from satellites, a ring of slightly darker soil marking where the water once reached. And along that ancient shoreline, archaeologists keep finding burials. People who fished and farmed on a lake edge that is now deep desert. 200 lakes under the Sahara, and people lived on every single one of them. The archaeological evidence is stunning. Pottery with elaborate decorations, bone harpoons for fishing, stone tools for processing grain, fish hooks in the middle of the Sahara from a time when there were fish to catch. In 2000, Paul Sereno's team discovered Gobero, a cemetery in the T-Sud-9 desert of Niger. A mother and 2 children buried together, arms intertwined. 5,300 years old. A family buried together on a lakeshore that hasn't had water in 5,000 years. Over 200 burials spanning 5,000 years. 2 distinct populations separated by a gap of 1,000 years. Sereno's team mapped the burial locations precisely. The 2 populations used different parts of the lakeshore. The Kifian people were physically remarkable, males averaging over 6 feet tall, robust build, strong jaw and brow. They were among the tallest populations in the prehistoric record. Built for a physically demanding life of hunting and fishing. 6 feet tall, robust build. A physically powerful people adapted to life on the Saharan lakes. Their grave goods tell us how they lived. Harpoons for fishing, heavy stone tools for processing large game. A lakeside economy based on fishing, hunting hippo and crocodile, and gathering wild grains. Then, the lake dried for 1,000 years. When the water returned, entirely different people arrived. The Kifian, tall, robust hunter, fisher, gatherers who lived on the lake's bounty around 8,000 years ago. The Tenarian, a later pastoral population arriving around 5,500 years ago with cattle and new burial customs. 2 populations same lakeshore, 1,000 years apart, and genetically distinct. The lake dried up between them. Then it refilled, and entirely different people showed up. The DNA work expanded beyond Gobero. Multiple teams extracted ancient genomes from burial sites across the Sahara, and the combined genetic picture revealed something that archaeology alone couldn't show. The green Sahara populations carried a unique genetic signature, a mixture of ancestries not found in any modern population, a blend that existed only during the green Sahara period. When the desert dried, the blend scattered. Their genetic signature was unique, and when the rain stopped, it broke apart and spread across Africa. Researchers have attempted to computationally reconstruct the original Saharan genetic profile from the fragments preserved in modern populations. The reconstruction shows a population that was roughly equal parts three ancestral components, a blend that no living population carries in those proportions. The recipe existed for thousands of years. When the rain stopped, the recipe was destroyed. Only ingredients survived. When a unique population scatters into multiple host populations, the original genetic combination becomes permanently unrecoverable. Within 15 generations, the probability of finding the original combination in any individual drops to near zero. It is gone forever. The desertification happened between roughly 5,500 and 4,500 years ago. Sediment cores from former Saharan lakes show the transition clearly. Dark organic lake bottom sediment sharply giving way to desert sand. In some cores, the transition from lake to desert happened in less than 200 years. The last burials at Gobero date to around 4,500 years ago. After that, silence. The lake was gone. The people were gone. They didn't choose to leave. The water disappeared. And without water, everything dies. 9 million square kilometers of habitable land turned uninhabitable in less than a millennium. An estimated 5 to 10 million people forced to migrate within a few centuries. One of the largest climate-driven displacements in human history. 5 to 10 million climate refugees. 5,000 years before the term existed. The migration wasn't sudden. It unfolded over generations as the rainfall retreated southward. Each generation moved a little further. Their grandparents had known the lakes. Their grandchildren would never see one. It wasn't a single exodus. It was a slow retreat that lasted centuries, generation by generation. Climate models show the Saharan moisture zone retreating at roughly 10 to 20 kilometers per century. As each zone dried, its inhabitants moved to the next wet zone south, until there was nowhere left to go. The Sahel, the southern edge of the Sahara, where the last refugees of the Green Sahara finally stopped. And the DNA confirms this is exactly where the Saharan genetic signal is strongest in modern Africa. And the DNA tells us where they went: south into West Africa, east to the Nile Valley, north to the Mediterranean coast. The pastoral populations moved south with their cattle, following the retreating rainfall into the Sahel belt. Modern Fulani populations carry detectable fragments of this ancient Saharan ancestry, the genetic signature of pastoralists who walked south when their world dried up. The Fulani are partially descended from the people who lived in the Sahara when it was green, and the eastward migration had even larger consequences. The timeline of Saharan desertification overlaps precisely with the rise of ancient Egypt. Pre-dynastic tombs at Hierakonpolis in Upper Egypt contain wall paintings that look more Saharan than Egyptian. The grinding stones are identical. Same design at Saharan sites and early Nile settlements. Same tools, same art, same cattle traditions. The refugees brought their entire culture to the Nile. The Sahara dried, millions moved east. The Nile Valley's population exploded, and Egypt was born. The Nile Valley was a funnel. As the Sahara emptied, the Nile-filled population density surged, and ancient DNA from early Egyptian burials shows genetic inputs consistent with populations from the Western Desert. The pottery styles, the cattle cult imagery, the pastoral symbolism in early Egyptian religion, all traceable to the Green Sahara. The art traveled with the people. Saharan rock art traditions, showing cattle worship, appear in early Egyptian imagery. Egypt didn't emerge from nothing. It was built partly by refugees from a dying Sahara. The decorative motifs are unmistakable: dotted, wavy line pottery, a signature style of Saharan ceramics, found in the earliest Egyptian settlements. The Hathor cow goddess of Egypt may trace her origins to Saharan cattle worship traditions. Egypt's cattle religion didn't come from the Nile. It may have walked in from the dying Sahara. The rock art shows cattle rituals, humans bowing before bulls, cattle in decorated procession. Ancient DNA from pre-dynastic Egyptian burials in Upper Egypt shows genetic input from Western desert populations. The Western desert was their highway. They moved east along routes, now invisible beneath the sand. Satellite imagery has revealed buried river channels running from the Sahara directly into the Nile system. Natural migration corridors. The Tassili paintings are the Green Sahara's most haunting legacy. Art made by people whose world was about to vanish. But here's the twist. The DNA also shows something the migration narrative doesn't capture. The Saharan genetic signature didn't survive as a coherent profile. It shattered. When the migrants entered existing populations around the Sahara's edges, their distinctive genetic combination was diluted and broken apart. Within a few centuries, the specific combination was gone. Individual components survived, but the mix that made the Saharan population distinctive dissolved. Each destination received a different slice of the Saharan genome. No single modern population inherited the full picture. West Africans inherited one piece, North Africans another, East Africans a third. The whole dissolved forever. 3 continents received pieces of the puzzle, but no one got the complete picture. The fragments are real, detectable, but scattered across 3 different continental populations. The original whole exists only in ancient bones. The ingredients survived, but the recipe was lost. No living population carries the original Saharan blend. This is what makes climate-driven displacement so genetically devastating. Unlike conquest, where the defeated population is replaced in place, climate displacement scatters the population across multiple destinations. Climate scientists use the Green Sahara collapse as a calibration model for modern desertification projections. Modern projections suggest the Sahara could expand by 10 to 20% by 2100. Hundreds of millions of people live in the projected expansion zone. What happened 5,000 years ago could happen again. The Sahara is still expanding. The Sahel loses viable land every year. The process that killed the Green Sahara continues. The ancient event happened faster, but the trajectory is the same, and the genetic consequences will be similar. Scattered populations, dissolved identity, fragments of ancestry absorbed into new hosts. The Green Sahara isn't just ancient history. It is a case study for what climate displacement does to human genetics. The parallel to modern climate change is unmistakable and deliberate in the research framing. What happened to the Saharan populations is a preview of what climate-driven migration does to genetic diversity. The Green Sahara is a warning. When a homeland dies, the people scatter. The rock art they left behind is the most vivid testimony of what was lost. Swimming scenes in the Sahara, painted by people who lived in a world that no longer exists. The art shows cattle by the thousands, giraffes, hippos, crocodiles. Animals that require permanent water. Over 30,000 painted sites across the Sahara, the largest open-air art gallery on Earth, all of it documenting a world that vanished. The artists painted individual cattle with unique hide patterns. These weren't generic animals. They were portraits of specific herds. Modern photogrammetry is now digitally preserving these sites before wind erosion destroys them. The paintings are eroding. In a century, many will be gone. We're racing to record a dying gallery. Photographs from the 1950s compared to today show measurable deterioration. The desert is erasing its own history. The Caucasus Mountains in Libya contain some of the most extensive galleries. thousands of figures on a single rock face. The art itself documents the desertification. Early paintings show hippos and elephants. Late paintings show camels and horses. The animals changed as the water disappeared. The artists painted their world as it died, each generation recording a drier landscape than the last. 30,000 sites, every one of them painted by people whose DNA has been scattered to the winds. Back at Gobero, the burial ground sits exposed to the desert sun. The lake that sustained these people is gone. Same coordinates, separated by 6,000 years. One image shows paradise. The other shows sand. This DNA is some of the most valuable ancient genetic material in Africa, and the hardest to extract. Desert heat destroys DNA faster than almost any other environment. Every genome recovered from the Sahara is a small miracle of extraction technique. Desert DNA is the hardest to extract. The fact that we have any genomes at all is extraordinary. 9 million square kilometers, once green, now sand. A civilization thrived here. They herded cattle. They fished in lakes. They painted their world on stone. And when the rain stopped, they walked away. Their DNA scattered across 3 continents. If this changed what you thought you knew, subscribe. We publish new investigations every week. The sources and studies referenced in this video are linked in the description below. They didn't lose a war, they lost the rain, and the desert took everything else.